bit about Mr. Jon Paul. He was one of my, what did we test for first and second together, Jon Paul?
I think we did.
I thought so. Okay.
It's been a while. Yeah.
Definitely been a while. But he is a phenomenal martial artist, and I'm going to let him tell you a little bit about what he's doing now. So do you mind giving us a little overview about what you've been doing since you graduated high school?
Yeah, absolutely. So I went to the University of Florida. I majored in astronomy and astrophysics. And then after I graduated, I joined the Marine Corps and did some basic infantry training in Quantico, Virginia for a little while. And then after that, I came to Pensacola, where I live now, and I'm currently in flight school.
Awesome. Well, I want to take a second to thank you for coming on here and joining us. I really appreciate it. And I'm really glad you were able to work it out with your schedule. Master Lappin, did you want to say anything before I go into a couple questions for Mr. Jon Paul?
Yes, I want to just let people know how amazing Jon Paul is. And it's good to see you, JP.
Nice to see you.
He is an amazing young man. When he trained with us, he set the example and he led. You met his sister and his brother already. And he is the leader of these guys. I mean, he was the big brother that they looked up to. And for those of you, he said he graduated University of Florida. And we talked about how hard it is even to get into University of Florida. Right now, you have to have like a 4.45 GPA even to get in to be considered. So he got into University of Florida, which is a big deal, and has done an amazing job with what he's done, not just academically, but you've done real well in tournaments and everything else. Do you want to maybe talk about some of your successes? And I know that's hard for you because you're so humble, but maybe some of the tournaments that you've been in and some of the awards you've won and things like that.
Sure. Yeah. So some of the big things obviously were the regional 21 tournaments, going in there, managed to be fairly successful, particularly with forms and point sparring, and then also with the regional championships. And I had a lot of fun doing that. And even thinking back to a while ago when we did the Wizard of Oz demo, that was a lot of fun. Yeah.
That was way cool. Wow. Boy, that was a while ago.
It really was. Yeah. No, I have to attribute all that to basically it's just the tough training that we received at the time, kind of laid a foundation for, all right, well, in order to be successful in these tournaments, then you have to put in the hard work. And I heard earlier, Rachel, or Miss Lappin, and you, Master Lappin, talking about the earning your belt even online. That's true. That's so true. You still have to earn it. Nothing is ever given to you, and times like this, even it's very easy to become complacent. So I think that this is kind of overarching. I know I'm kind of going beyond the scope of your question, but it still pertains to that. Absolutely.
Thank you very much. So you guys should listen carefully to what he's saying, because he's a very, very successful young man. Okay, Rachel, you can ask his questions now. And actually, Rachel is considered, she is Master Luton now. She actually got her master's. And I still call her Rachel because she's Rachel to me, but she is Master Luton. So yeah. We're really proud of her for that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. There we go.
All right. So,
okay, Master Luton.
Okay. So Jon Paul, my first question, how did your black belt training at Middleburg Martial Arts help you while you were in school?
Yeah. So, I just want to point out one of the big things, and everyone studies from the student manual or the gut manual, in the World Tungsten Association, right? So one of the big things is, and I just want to emphasize, is that the black belt thing, I have it pulled up right here. It says, we see it as not only the end of one stage, but more importantly, the beginning of the path which leads through the ranks of the higher black belts to true mastery. So to answer your question, that kind of lays the foundation, not only in martial arts, but, going beyond that. So a lot of times we think like, okay, well, I've learned this one thing, now it's time to go on to the next thing. Now you keep that, whatever you learned from before, you keep that in your toolbox so that you can resort back to it when you need to. but being able to recognize that early on kind of helps, like I said, for the future when you're going through and you're like, all right, well, what's the next thing? It's basically not, you're not done learning is what I'm trying to say. Even when you get your black belt, you're not done learning. There's always more to it.
Yeah, very true. Very, very true. Okay. How did it help you outside of school? So once you were out of school, how did your black belt training, your leadership training at Middleburg Martial Arts help you?
So big thing there would be perseverance. That's one of the biggest things. I can't tell you how many times, even in my short Marine Corps career so far, where I failed things, adversity comes up, but it really is all about how you bounce back. And so I can. That's kind of, for example, let's say you're a student, you're at a regional tournament, or you're even at the world tournament or something like that, and you're going through and you're sparring, and then you lose that match. All right, well, how are you going to let it affect you? Because you can do one of two things. You can either sulk and be a sore loser, or you can strive to be better. And then on top of that, and I guess there's a third thing too, not only striving to do better, but helping others so that they don't make the same mistakes you did. So for example, if you are a Chodanbo, and then maybe you are watching one of the orange belt spar or something, and you notice that, hey, like, he or she did something that led to them losing the match. Well, then it's up to you, because you have the experience, to be able to go to that orange belt and be like, hey, I noticed that, this happened and this happened, but I bet you if you fixed it in this way, then you'll win next time. And those are certain things that, I was able to learn then that I can apply now, so that when adversity does come, I'm not all like down about it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really big for right now for everybody. And I know I've talked to this a million times, and I'm going to say it again, but right now, a lot of you guys, are virtual schooling and doing your karate classes virtually and all that kind of stuff. And some of you guys are not ready to test this time. And I know all of you guys on here especially are not just going to quit and give up of your goal of black belt because you're not ready to test this time. Or if you don't do well in a quiz at school, it doesn't mean you're going to quit third grade or fourth grade or whatever you're doing. You're going to pick yourself back up and you're going to learn from it, and you're going to try harder for the next belt test, or start studying more for your next quiz, or whatever you need to do. So yeah, that's huge.
Master Luton,
yes.
Can I just say something? When I heard Jon Paul talking, it reminded me, I've been listening to the audio version of Secrets of Self-Made Millionaires. It's a really good book. And one of the things that they said, that the traits that all these millionaires have in common, is the ability to bounce back. When the going gets rough, they don't let it crush them. They bounce back. They have that ability. And they don't look at failure as failure. They look at failure as feedback to get better. So exactly what JP was saying. And this is written up in books that have been studied by millions and millions of, they've studied very, very successful millionaires. And this is a trait they all had in common. So thank you for that feedback, JP.
Well, and we talked about that. Our last book that we read during Mat Chat was What to Say When You Talk to Yourself. And a big part of that, one big section, was talking about situational self-talk. And you can fail in a situation, you can have something really bad happen to you, but your attitude and the way you handle it is what's going to impact your success or your failures. So I think that's all really important. Okay, the next question. What is the most important thing that you benefited from your black belt leadership training?
Well, so one of the most important things, there's three big things, that kind of have a similar theme, that I can take away from overall martial arts experience, and particularly my black belt training. So one of the purposes of Tung Sado is strive to be better character through endurance and hard work. Like I said before, and like what Master Lappin was saying, as far as bouncing back, that's part of that endurance and hard work. You endure through the suck. So it's kind of, if you can let me say this. So in the Marine Corps, we say, we strive through the suck kind of sort of thing, stuff like that. Like you keep going through it, and you find, it's kind of weird, you find a lot of comfort in being uncomfortable. Because here's the thing, you know that during those times you are growing. And how many times you can think about in a class, especially like an advanced class where, you know, you're doing some super hard workout. And then on top of that, you know, we're going to do in one class, you know, you'll go through all your techniques, you go through your forms, and then you go through and you'll do workouts in between. And then at the very end of it, you're like, dang, I'm beat. So that's one thing you got to think about through going through that, as well as the endurance and hard work. No retreat in battle, and then that's one of the 5 codes, and 7 tenets. You know, as far as talking about perseverance, yeah, those are the 3 big things, particularly coming from the black belt perspective, that were huge and laying a foundation.
Very nice. Yeah, and you see that like right now, the whole virtual thing, this whole quarantine thing, it gives you so many things to appreciate and be grateful for, and recognize how well you're doing right now. So I like that. I like that saying. Okay. Then my last question for you. So we have about 55 families on here. Most of them, probably about 75% of them, are in our leadership or our master's program, meaning they've committed to black belt and they're on black belt training. We do have some families on here that are new to our karate school, that maybe have not made the commitment to get to black belt yet, or who are considering that leadership training. So what would you say to those students?
I would say that the commitment to a black belt, obviously, first of all, take it seriously. It's a big commitment, but with that commitment comes so much growth. And like I said, that is something that can be extended beyond just your martial arts. And understand that Tang Soo Do, middle martial arts, you know, just martial arts in general is not necessarily the end state, but your overall well-being, your health, your life, your leadership skills that you can take away from those skills that you're going to learn now early on, are huge. And you know, I can't necessarily think that I would be exactly where I am today if it were not for that foundation that was laid down early on. And you can think even from, you know, being even from when you're a white belt, and then all of the growth and everything that you learn throughout the raising up in the belts. So we got to think about that as well. It's more than just beyond just Middleburg martial arts, if that makes sense. I don't know. Does that make sense to you, Rachel?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
I should say Master Luton, sorry.
It's okay. All right. So is there anything else? Our theme of the month this month is leadership. So we've been talking about leadership. Is there anything that you want to tell these guys? Any advice you want to give them about leadership? Anything you've learned in particular that you would like to share with them?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say, I wrote a couple notes here. Never settle, and continue to strive for growth even through adversity. So like we mentioned before, when things get tough, keep going. You're going to learn from those experiences and those mistakes. And the most important part about those is you can help others. So you have to, first of all, persevere is the first step of that. The second step is to pass on what you've learned to others, and understand that leadership is not about you at all. It's about your subordinates, is about others. Okay, so we have a saying in the Marine Corps where the leaders eat last, and that basically means that, you know, your subordinates, they take the priority. So mission first, people always. If you keep that in mind, that's going to be a very, very great advantage to you throughout your whole entire life, really. And that could even be even when you're like doing a group project at school, or if you're doing a virtual project online, taking the lead, but making sure that, you know, you're not trying to make yourself look.
What are you doing?
Great, you know?
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much. And do you have a couple of minutes if our students have some questions for you? Do you have a minute to answer some questions?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So who has a question for Mr. Jon Paul? I saw a hand a second ago. Where'd it go? All right, Caleb, what's your question?
I actually have two.
Okay.
How old were you when you got your black belt?
Let's see.
The entire House of Representatives and 1/3 of the Senate are on the ballot in November.
I think.
Probably 12.
Master, how old are you? Well, 13.
You guys were the same age. You got it together. Rachel, how old were you? 12?
12. Yeah. So 12.
JP, you're a little older than her.
Maybe we're the same age.
You're both 27 right now?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so you were 12 then.
12. It was 12. Yep.
All right. And Caleb, what's your other question?
My other question is, how old were you when you first started karate?
I was 4 years old when I first started karate.
All
You
right.
know, that's a commonality of a lot of the people that have been on here. The ones that started really young and stuck with it have been the ones that have been really super uber successful.
Mhm. Okay. All right, Noah, what is your question? Go ahead and unmute yourself, bud. And then Luca, I'll let you go next. Go ahead, Noah. You have to unmute yourself.
When were you in Leaders Club or Masters?
So I'm going to answer that for him. I don't think we had our leadership or our master's club. They weren't called that, but we did have advanced levels of training. I think it was called Black Belt Club at the time.
Black Belt Club.
Mhm.
was-
Right, JP, Black Belt Club.
Yep.
And he was in that. He was one of the founding members of that. So he actually helped us start the Black Belt Club. Him and Master Luton and his brother and sister and actually a lot of the people that are going to be on board here were founders in that, because Jacob Rupar was there, Gwen was there, Casey was there. All of you guys like started at the same time when we started that Black Belt Club, I think, which is kind of cool.
Jarrett Manzi.
And who?
Jarrett Manzi.
Yep, Jarrett was on here Friday. Yeah, he's doing really well. So it's amazing that it's amazing how far we've gone from when we originally started that many years ago to now, because we're doing so much more than we gave even then. Like, look at what we're doing here, having leaders like you on here to teach other people and share ideas. So that's pretty cool.
Okay. Luca, what was your question, bud?
When did you earn your black belt?
12 years old.
All right, Mackenzie, what is your question?
What is your definition of leaders?
My definition of leadership or leaders. Wow, that's a great question. I would say, if I were just to say something off the top of my head, it would be to help others be the best version of themselves.
I like that. I like that. All right. Any other questions for Mr. Jon